My mother was a very religious Jew. She grew up in a small town in Georgia, Thomasville, Georgia, and they were Orthodox and they kept kosher and they were very observant of rituals and various Jewish customs. And she really imbued in me a strong sense of Judaism. And particularly when I was a young person, she was very insistent that we go to religious school, to Friday night services, to Hebrew school. And really, it was really a chore for me as a young person, because I wanted to be out playing ball with all my other friends, and particularly on Saturday when we would have, Sabbath school on Saturday mornings. But she instilled in me, I think, a sense of awareness of that heritage. And I think, too, the fact that I was born in 1944 on the heels of the Holocaust and World War II, there seemed to be a heightened sensitivity about Judaism back in that period of time. And it made me more conscious and aware of who I was. And so it was with great pride that I thought of myself as a Jew. And particularly in Dothan, Alabama, Jews were really warmly embraced here, and they always have been. And the culture that has been created here is one that has really been very open and inviting of all kinds of people and different viewpoints and ways of observing their traditions and their beliefs. And it really has created a rather remarkable society here. So part of the reason that, I've become so moved by trying to bring Jews to Dothan is to see if we can perpetuate what we have here in Dothan. And I do think it's a very exceptional small town. When I was a young person and I was in the public school system, they had a school-wide, the local Board of Education deemed either Rosh Hashanah or Yom Kippur, whichever one fell on a weekday, they deemed that to be a school-wide holiday. And there were no classes. I mean, how many towns would you hear of that who would have, a holiday, a citywide holiday for observance of a Jewish holiday? But I think that's reflective of the sensitivity that people had about Jews here and our heritage and their willingness to embrace and respect it. Hyman Blumberg, my grandfather, he was 21 when he immigrated to America, and he arrived in Baltimore. And he just slowly began to work in mercantile, and he just kind of took a path I think that a lot of peddlers took back in that day. They would hear from jobbers and manufacturers, where there might be opportunity. So slowly he came south, and he was in Atlanta. And then I think someone in Atlanta told him about this emerging town in Dothan. And so he came on down to Dothan in 1892, and that's kind of how he started. So that's one of the reasons, too, that I wanted to do the relocation program. I really feel sincerely and strongly that Dothan is a special place, and that I have great pride in that, in our history, and I want to perpetuate that, and I want to do everything I can to try to preserve it and hope that it goes forward for future generations. And I really think we're planting those kinds of seeds. I really do. Our business really took off here in 1992-93. We did the first Marriott product, the Fairfield Inn here in Dothan. I would guess around that time the Jewish community probably was in a state of decline, mild decline, because when I came back to Dothan in 1970, I think we had a family membership in excess of 100 families. And if I had to guess, in 1992 or so, that had probably ebbed to maybe 80, 85 families. But then that attrition continued. And really what propelled it, I think, was the passing away of so many of our elders, many people of my father's generation, and again, people just not coming back, to sustain these businesses. And then also, as some of these other folks got older, they really wanted to be closer to family. So wherever their young children were going when they graduated from college, they'd go to those towns, and that's where they wanted to be as, they became more frail and, they wanted that kind of family support. So really, I think it accelerated through the 90s. And I think we reached our nadir probably in the early 2000s. And our current rabbi, Lynn Goldsmith, came here, I think it was around 2006 or 7. And probably we were really at a low watermark then. I think we had about 35 families. And really, it impacts the temple in so many ways. Financially, you don't have the dues-paying members to support a full-time rabbi and the beautiful physical plant that we have. Secondly, and real importantly, you don't have the people to do the activities and the kinds of things that create the spirit and the essence of a congregation. And we just didn't have the membership. We didn't have the people. And the load just fell on a very few people. And that's when I really decided that, maybe we can do something to change that. And that really was the genesis of our relocation program. I think Dothan is a great place to live. I think that it has an exceptional quality. And, I've talked a little bit about the openness and the welcoming attitude of Dothan. And not just in the sense of being friendly and the more superficial things, but in a real deep way, where people are embracing of other folks' ideas and the way they think and their beliefs and the way they practice their faiths. It's just a very open, welcoming society. And I think people respond to that. I really do. And particularly Jews. My feeling is that Jews in small communities such as Dothan, based upon my experience growing up here and then coming back and being here for the past 45 years, really have an opportunity to interact so much more fully with non-Jews than you might have in the large cities. Then when you think about the quality of life and what we have here, I mean, Dothan the climate is good, notwithstanding the heat and the humidity sometimes. But, our location is superb. We're about 3.5 hours from Atlanta, an hour and a half from arguably the most beautiful beaches in the world around Panama City and Destin and the Gulf Coast. Just extraordinary. I mean, sand that just looks like sugar. I've never seen anything like it in any of my travels. We have tremendous recreational facilities here. I mean, you can find most anything for family and individuals. I think the general quality of life is just superb, and the cost of living here is just very, very good. The Chamber of Commerce recently said that the average cost of living in Dothan is like 88% of the national average. And I think a median home here is like $133,000. So people can come here, and some of the people who come with our relocation program, they're just struck by how much a dollar will buy in Dothan, Alabama. So there's a lot here, I think, today, and I think the future bodes exceptionally well for Dothan. This is my contribution to trying to continue Judaism in this country, and particularly in small towns, where I think it's so important that people have that kind of exposure to Jews. I'm a big, big proponent of teaching someone how to fish, not just giving them a fish. So that's what we're trying to do here, is find people who really can, immerse themselves in our community, Dothan at large, our Jewish community, find a good job, make a real contribution to our temple and to our city.